Star Sapphire. A fast-moving plane swept down from over the mountains, its nose dropping sharply as it headed for the desert community below. On the floor of the moonlit desert, the city's lights and clustered neon signs glowed like a brilliant jewel. It could have been Las Vegas or Palm Springs, but from that height, the signs were unreadable against the dark backdrop of the mountain range. The plane hedge-hopped over Joshua trees, its airspeed a blur in the background, as it picked up a large, lighted sign. Howdy, Podner, welcome to Desert City, the Monte Carlo of the West. In the center of the sign, a lighted roulette wheel spun. As the plane moved in, the wheel stopped and a lighted ball fell into number 13. Just as the plane was about to crash into the sign, a wave of hot samba music, laughter, and general gaiety rose up, only to end abruptly. The only light in the entrance to the Desert City Police Department was the one above the doorway. Inside police headquarters, it was even darker. A single arc light hung from the ceiling, leaving the rest of the room in shadow. A cloud of cigar smoke rose past the light and vanished into the darkness above. Lieutenant Redwine's voice cut through the haze.
I've been in charge of homicide for 7 years, but I've never run into such a cock and bull yarn as you're putting out.
Puffs of smoke rose with his words, giving them a bitter emphasis. I was looking at Lieutenant Redwine, a thick-set man with a wide jaw, a shock of iron gray hair, and a deep tan from the desert sun. A cigar was clamped in his mouth, and he was straddling a chair facing me. I was the prisoner, sitting in a chair under the concentrated glare of that arc light. Behind Redwine stood a large, heavy-set man, his eyes big and thoughtful as he studied me, chewing slowly on a cigar of his own. 2 uniformed policemen stood by, us ready.
That kind of malarkey's all right for Sherlock Holmes and Dick Tracy,
Redwine continued, his voice dripping with contempt.
but it isn't for the Desert City Police Department, not by a long shot.
The strong light made me squint at him. My face felt drawn, and I could feel beads of perspiration on my forehead and upper lip. My clothes, a Western type but not cowboy, felt stuck to my skin.
We deal in facts.
Which I've been giving you, I shot back.
Oh, sure you have.
He scoffed.
A blonde dame with a big car and a Star Sapphire. Beyond that, some items get hazy, but you remember nothing that would help. Better jog that memory.
I came in here under my own steam, I said, my voice rising. I made a report. The facts as I saw them. I don't have to take any third degree. I'm getting out of this sweatshop. I started to get up, but the 2 uniformed cops grabbed me, forcing me back into my chair.
You're going no place till I'm satisfied you've told everything you know.
Redwine growled, "You can't get away with this. I'm no criminal, and I'm not a liar."
Which we're waiting patiently for you to prove,
he said, leaning forward.
Let's have it again, from the beginning, Doc, and this time don't forget those missing pieces.
My mouth tightened. I took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and loosened my shirt collar. The heat from the lamp was unbearable. "I'm Dr. Luke Fargo," I began, my voice steady despite the anger boiling inside me. "My friends call me K.O. Not on account I put my patients to sleep, but because I took up prize fighting to put myself through medical school. I lived in Gunsight, a desert town at the foot of a rugged mountain range. The main drag was lined with false front stores, their paint sandblasted and weather-beaten. A few cars were parked in the street, one new, the others old jalopies. The folks there were miners, cowhands, and desert rats, the kind of people who take a man's word and don't give him any third degree. It was just the spot for a roughneck army surgeon to open up a clinic. Chuck Gordon, a young medic who'd been with me at Anzio and the Bulge, came along. A small knot of men and women were grouped at the entrance to my clinic, anxiously trying to see what was happening inside. The sign on the building read, Luke Fargo, M.D., Chester Gordon, M.D. The reception room was crowded. A few kids sat with bandaged arms and heads. Nurse Roberts, 45 and leathery-faced but efficient as they come, stood by the desk. A white-clad doctor, Chuck, was writing on a chart. A low hum of conversation filled the air, thick with suspense. Nurse Roberts was no bathing beauty. She was an ex-whack, but good. Awful good. That was the setup, Lieutenant, as of yesterday noon when things began to happen. Jim Colgate, a miner, had been brought in with a crushed skull. His wife, Sue, a frail blonde of about 26, stood by their two towheads, Kit and Boodle, aged 5 and 3. She bit her lip, trying not to cry, while a stoic Western type named Talbot stood beside her. In the surgery, Chuck and I were in our whites. Jim Colgate lay on a cot, his head loosely bandaged. Chuck was taking his blood pressure, while I held the X-ray pictures up to the light. Chuck glanced across at me, trying to tell from my facial expression how bad the patient had been hurt. I put down the X-rays and crossed to the patient.
How were they?
Chuck asked. Compound fracture with possible pressure area, I said. How's his blood pressure?
Good. Only 135.
If it stays that way, Jim will be okay.
The next 5 or 6 hours will tell the story,
Chuck said grimly. Better start a transfusion, Chuck. I stopped. We exchanged puzzled looks as a commotion erupted in the reception room.
You can't see Dr. Fargo now. He's busy.
It was Nurse Roberts' voice.
Oh, no, you don't. Young woman, you come back here.
The door to the surgery flew open, and a young girl with a body by Varga crashed in. Right behind her was a stern-faced Nurse Roberts, who had grabbed her by the arm. The girl, Dusty, looked anxious, worried, and lovely.
I said you'd have to wait your turn,
Roberts said, putting some steam into her grip. Dusty threw an appealing look at me. Her eyes wavered, her knees buckled. I moved quickly and caught her in my arms as she fainted. Nurse Roberts let go of her arm. I'll take care of Gorgeous, I told her. Roberts gave me a wry look and exited. Chuck was in the background preparing the blood transfusion. As I crossed toward the door to another office carrying the girl, Chuck took a good look at her.
Nice. Healthy too. $5 says she's expecting.
We'll soon find out, I said, opening the door to the next office. It was a small room with a cot, examination table, and a chair. I put Dusty gently on the couch and started to check her pulse. Her eyes were closed, her head resting on a pillow, two very lovely, silk-clad limbs not too well covered. My expression changed to one of suspicion. As I felt her pulse, it was strong and steady. I let go of her wrist, crossed to the examination table, cranked down the back, and pulled out each footrest with a snap, watching her all the while. I saw one of her eyes open slightly, her lips tighten in alarm, then close again. The clink of the second footrest confirmed my suspicion. My lips tightened. I took out a cigarette, lit it, and leaned against the examination table, studying Dusty's face narrowly. She moved her head, opened her eyes slowly, and gradually focused them on me. Nice legs. Nice feint, I said. What's your racket? She gave me a hurt look, but she saw she couldn't bluff me. She sat up.
Sorry, but I had to see you, Doctor.
All good-looking dames belong to the Me First sorority.
Dr. Banning has an emergency case, a compound skull fracture. He wants you to come to Desert City immediately and do a trepanation.
Desert City has 2 brain specialists, I said. If they haven't broken their arms on the slot machines, how come he picked on me?
They're both out of town. Dr. Banning knew of your war record.
Where do you fit into the picture?
I'm Mary Johnson, Dr. Banning's nurse. I was visiting my aunt here when he phoned for me to try to bring you to Desert City.
When Dr. Banning phoned a couple of hours ago, I told him I was too busy, and I still am. Dusty crossed to me, her expression earnest.
Dr. Banning said your fee would be $2,000.
I raised my eyebrows, glancing at her warily. Some big oil and ore man?
Dr. Banning only said for us to meet him at City Hospital.
I studied her a moment, then nodded. I'll talk it over with my partner. Her face brightened as I crossed to the door and went back into the surgery. Chuck was standing by the cot, checking Colgate's pulse. The blood transfusion was in operation. He glanced up as I entered.
Well, is she expecting?
As of now, I said.
Now.
Expecting me to go to Desert City and do an emergency trepanation. There's $2,000 in it. How's Jim coming?
He's still 135.
Chuck's eyes widened.
Did you say 2,000 smackaroos?
What do you think, Chuck?
That would pay up for a lot of the equipment, K.O. How long would it take?
Be back not later than 5. If there is any change, you could call me at City Hospital. It's Dr. Banning's patient.
Grab it, K.O.,
he said.
If Jim's blood pressure starts to skyrocket, I'll phone. But for the love of Pete, fly back pronto, pal, because I'm no brain surgeon.
I grinned and started for the door to the other office. Dusty turned from the window as I entered, giving me an anxious look. I peeled off my white jacket, took my own jacket and a semi-western hat from the coat rack. Okay, beautiful. We're shoving off.
For a moment I was worried, Doctor,
she said with relief. I shrugged into my jacket, put on my hat, and picked up a metal surgical kit from the corner. As I was about to open the door for her, Chuck stuck his head in.
Want a 21-gun salute or something, Major?
I grinned, gave him a go-to-hell salute, and opened the door for Dusty. In the reception room, Sue Colgate, Talbot, and Nurse Roberts watched as we entered. The 2 Colgate kids were there, too. As Dusty moved slowly toward the main door, I turned to face Sue Colgate.
How bad is it, K.O.?
She asked, her voice trembling. I'll lay it on the line, Sue. Jim has a compound skull fracture. He's still in shock, but holding his own. We won't know whether I have to operate for 4 or 5 hours. Chuck is staying with him. I've got to go to Desert City on an emergency operation, but I'll be back by 5. She looked frightened. Nurse Roberts' eyes narrowed as she glanced accusingly at Dusty. Dusty took in the scene, her eyes softening as she saw my gentler side.
But you will be back in time?
Sue pleaded.
You know better than to ask that, Sue,
Talbot said gruffly.
If K.O. says he'll be back by 5, he'll be back.
I'm sorry, K.O.,
she said, her voice cracking.
I guess I'm just plain scared. Jim's all we have.
I patted her shoulder. There must be some things for you to do at home, Sue, to sort of keep your mind occupied. I don't want you losing that baby. Sue managed a weak smile. I grinned and rumpled the heads of the 2 kids. Kit and Boodle, you kids see to it your mother quits worrying till I get back. The 2 kids nodded solemnly. I crossed to where Dusty was waiting, and we both exited. Outside, a long blue Cadillac sedan was parked at the curb. Your heap? I asked.
A friend loaned it to me,
she said, holding out a key ring.
Would you like to drive, Doctor?
I hesitated, then nodded. I wouldn't want you fainting at the wheel, gorgeous. I opened the car door for her. She gave me a wary smile and got in. I walked around the car, got in, and drove off. After my old beat-up model, that big showcase made for nice driving. When I cleared the main drag, I stepped on the gas and sent that long blue hood knifing through the dancing heat demons of the desert. I glanced over at Dreampuss. She was staring straight ahead, pretending she didn't know I was looking at her. Her eyes had thick lashes, and there was a rich softness to her skin that could start a guy dreaming. Soft cushions, a gorgeous dame, and a big car, all heading for $2,000. It wasn't hard to take. Then Old Man Conscience moved in, and I tried to tell myself that Jim would be okay till I got back, that I was on that ride only because I was a medic, and for the $2,000 I needed for equipment, that if Dreampuss had come equipped with buck teeth and bow legs, I'd still be on that ride. That's what I tried to tell myself. When I took another glance at her, I knew it was no dice. Caio Fargo had gone along because he wouldn't have missed that ride for $1 million. The patient and the $2,000 were just excuses. I patted my pockets. Forgot my cigarettes. Dusty noticed and opened a blue handbag, taking out a cigarette case. She opened it, and I took one. Thanks. Light? She flipped a lighter. As I took the light, our heads were close together. Nice, I said. She gave me a puzzled look. The perfume, Dreampuss. She put a cigarette between her own lips. As she lit it, the flame illuminated the large star sapphire ring on the second finger of her left hand. It glowed with an inner fire. Nursing must pay off in Desert City, I remarked. Perfume at $45 per jigger, star sapphires. I glanced sideways at her. She looked a little disturbed. She blew a lazy smoke ring.
They were given to me.
Special guy?
Sort of.
That's too bad, I said. I was thinking after I'd collected that $2,000, maybe I could afford you.
Professionally?
We could start out that way. She looked confused, then frightened. She turned and stared ahead through the windshield. There was a frightened look in her eyes that made me feel that something was wrong. I tried to analyze the feeling. It came out to just one question. Why was Dreampuss keeping quiet, with a look in her eyes that read, detoured stiff? By the time we started up Railroad Pass, I was all caught up on the silent treatment. We've got 60 miles more to go, I said, breaking the silence. You're nice to look at, but I have to watch the road occasionally. How's about piping out with a little palaver, Dreampuss?
What? What do you want to talk about?
She asked, her voice small. You. How come you wanted to be a nurse instead of Miss America?
I wanted to be useful.
For raising temperatures. Where'd you train?
New York. St. Vincent's.
Good hospital. Then you trained under Horseface, Mary Burko?
Horseface wasn't so bad.
She said.
I rather liked her.
That's all I need to know. I pulled the car to the curb and set the brakes.
What's the matter?
She asked, alarmed. Horseface was at the Angela in San Antonio. She was never at St. Vincent's. Dusty looked confused, frightened. You aren't a nurse, so quit talking fast and make it good, Dreampuss.
I'm Dr. Banning's receptionist.
Then why pretend to be a nurse?
I'm sorry. It wasn't a good idea. I just thought I'd be more convincing as a nurse. When you turned Dr. Banning down, he sent me to get you.
Figured I'd fall for a good-looking dish, huh?
Well, didn't you?
I gave her a searching look, grinned, then put the car in gear and moved off. The fear and tension washed out of her face. Maybe she was lying, but there was something about Dreampuss that made me want to believe her. Yes, I think she could have sold me any kind of cockeyed yarn she'd wanted to. Okay, I said. So you're a receptionist, and I'm a doctor. We were driving up into the foothills now.
Who doesn't talk like one?
She replied. You've been seeing the wrong kind of doctors, Dreampuss. The carriage trade crowd who lived on fancy fees and caviar, while a lot of other medics felt they had a job to do. I'm used to operating 36 hours on end, to having the refugees arrive in droves. No fancy fees, no publicity, just the knowledge that I'd saved a lot of good Joes and eased the going out for others. She glanced at me sympathetically.
Aren't you a little bitter?
Maybe that's because I haven't got a lot of things I used to dream about.
What sort of things?
A car like this, a dame like you. She was momentarily confused. She opened the glove compartment and brought out 2 packages wrapped in wax paper.
Chicken sandwich, Doctor?
I glanced down and nodded. She opened the paper and handed me a sandwich. I took a bite, swallowing with relish. She cooks, too.
Coffee or lemonade, Doctor?
Carriage trade service. Make mine lemonade. Wonderful. She took out a thermos bottle, poured lemonade into a tin cup, and handed it to me. I took a deep swallow. Lady, that hits the jackpot. We must do this again some night, like tomorrow, when I'm not operating. She said nothing, nibbling half-heartedly at her sandwich as she watched me. Frightened shadows gathered in her eyes again. She was getting scared, and I knew it wasn't from my crack about a date. A dame with her equipment wouldn't scare that easy. No, it was something more than that. What's the matter, Dreampuss? Every time I open my mouth, you look scared to death.
Why, there's nothing the matter.
Sure there is. It's written all over your lovely puss. Come on. I shook my head, blinking my eyes. A wave of nausea swept over me. The road grew fuzzy. What the... I started to slump at the wheel. Dusty looked frightened, reached over, and put one hand on the wheel as she turned off the ignition. Through my own eyes, the road got fuzzy. Dusty's face became blurry. The ring on her finger caught the light and blazed up as I passed out. My tongue went stiff and woolly. The road expanded and bounced, then started spinning. The last thing I saw was that star sapphire on her finger, bursting into flames. The air filled with blue nocturne. Subconsciously, I saw Dream Puss watching me. She was smiling, but that frightened look was still in her eyes. Then the tang in my nostrils wasn't blue nocturne anymore. It was cheap cigar. I slid off the pink cloud I was riding into a blaze of light. Gradually, things began to take shape. A whole lot of things. The Mickey Dream Puss had slipped me. The fright clouds in her eyes while she waited for it to take effect. The broad-shouldered goon sitting in the chair across the room watching me. And I knew I'd walked into something. It was a dude ranch-type living room with a heavy-beamed ceiling and Monterey furniture. Lights were on. Across the room, a huge man sat slumped in a chair watching me. He was lean-faced with prematurely gray hair, and his eyes were light, icy. His face was expressionless. He took a cigar leisurely from his mouth.
"Feeling better, Doc?"
he asked, his voice a flat whisper. I was lying on a sofa. I blinked, sat up gingerly, and passed a hand over my eyes. I shook my head, massaging the back of my neck. "Who would you be?"
"The name is Evelyn, Doc. Sometimes it makes people laugh. I don't like being laughed at."
I gave him a sour look, swung my legs off the sofa, and got up. I winced, taking hold of the back of a chair to steady myself. The floor came up and hit me in the face. Then it flattened out again. I glanced around the room. The windows were shuttered. Then I remembered Jim Colgate. I glanced at my wrist. My watch was gone, only the white band of flesh showing against my desert tan. I shot a sharp look at Evelyn. "What time is it?"
2:15, Doc,
came his whispered voice. Some of the tension washed out of my face. That was better. I still had plenty of time to get back to Jim. "I'm supposed to do an emergency op at City Hospital, Desert City," I said. "But I'll settle for a fast ride back to Gunsight."
You might call this the City Hospital, Doc.
My eyes narrowed. "City Hospital, eh? Admission fee $1, Mickey." I started menacingly toward him. "And presto, you're in Queer Street with the windows shuttered and your watch gone. Look, laughing boy, I'm getting out of this loony joint pronto. And I don't think a goon called Evelyn is man enough to stop me." I was almost up to him, about to lunge, when he merely lifted his left hand from his lap. It held a gun that was pointing at my stomach. Otherwise, he didn't move.
Remember what I said about the laughter, Doc.
I dropped my heels back to the floor. I know a cold deck when I meet it.
Smart. Let's see the hands.
I hesitated, then extended both hands, palms down. Evelyn glanced at them, then back at me.
You're okay now. I'll take you to your patient.
He got up, motioning with the gun for me to cross to the door. He opened it and motioned me out. "Turn right and walk slow, Doc." We walked down a corridor furnished in the Western motif, with Navajo rugs on the walls. The windows in the hall were shuttered like the ones in the living room. My eyes flicked from right to left, missing nothing. I wanted to remember. For later.
Slow down, Doc,
Evelyn whispered. "This is where we turn." We reached a door, and Evelyn opened it onto a brightly lighted room. He preceded me into a kitchen where the windows were also shuttered. In the center of the room, a man was on an operating table, covered from the neck down by a white sheet. A tall nurse, wearing a white uniform, dark glasses, operating mask, and rubber gloves, was taking the patient's blood pressure. An oxygen apparatus and tank, a sterilizing cabinet, and a washstand were all in place. More windows shuttered. Home-rigged surgery, a patient. Those missing pieces were beginning to show. The nurse removed the blood pressure tourniquet and stepped back, revealing the patient's head. From his forehead to where he was covered, he was smeared in black grease. A white gauze pad rested loosely over the top of his head. "What's he? N-man in a minstrel show?" I glanced at Evelyn. He volunteered no information. I stepped closer to the patient and raised the gauze pad. The head had been shaved, and the end of a wound was in sight. My eyes narrowed and my lips tightened. Suddenly, I knew what I'd walked into. It was all there, written in hot lead. "This man's been shot," I declared.
Could be.
Evelyn whispered. I studied him a moment, then came to a decision. A medic's first duty is to the patient. The questions and answers come later. Let's see the x-rays.
We needed a surgeon who was used to operating without benefit of x-rays, Doc. You go to work, and you save him.
Then I reported to the police.
That's right. Your instruments are in the sterilizer.
Thanks. I crossed to the sink. Evelyn followed. I peeled off my jacket and shirt and started to wash my hands and forearms. Where's the anesthetist?
She's it. This hospital's kind of short-handed. She knows her stuff, but she don't talk to strangers.
The formal type, huh? I glanced across at the nurse. At first, I thought she might be Dream Puss. Then I took a gander at her legs. She wasn't Dream Puss. Hers were the pipe stem type. The nurse wheeled a tray to the operating table, then picked up a cap and gown and started toward me. She put the gown on me, tied it, then put on my white cap. "Let's see the patient's chart," I said. Evelyn picked it up and held it for me to scan while the nurse put on my rubber gloves and mask. The guy was 45, didn't have a name. Pulse fast, respiration labored, blood pressure, 285. My voice tightened, the surgeon in me taking over. "Shake the lead out of your heels, nurse," I said, starting quickly toward the patient. "Start the anesthesia if you don't want a corpse on your hands." The nurse moved quickly, administering the anesthetic. I removed the gauze pad from the patient's head, inspected the damaged area, and painted it with iodine. Evelyn moved in closer. "Stand back, laughing boy," I said without looking up. "Maybe you've been sterilized, but I don't take chances." Evelyn's eyes narrowed, but he stepped back a few feet. The instant the patient was under, I made a crisscross incision, then clamped the flaps back with retractors. "Start the oxygen and watch it close," I ordered the nurse. "I don't like to lose a customer, even if he has no name and a black face." The hissing of oxygen filled the room. My silent nurse was quietly efficient. She handed me instruments, hemostats, sponges the instant I asked for them. 40 minutes later, the job on Blackface was all sewed up. The nurse wheeled the patient out of the room, and I heard the door being locked from the outside. I noted it, then crossed to the sink. Evelyn crossed to me. I dropped a small piece of lead on the stand, pulled off my gloves, mask, cap, and gown, and started to wash up. Evelyn reached in and picked up the piece of lead. He could scratch his own stitches out later on. I had to get back to Gunsight and Jim Colgate. "A 38, I said. "I like souvenirs." Evelyn said nothing, just pocketed the bullet. As I started to dry my face, I suddenly stiffened. From outside, a coyote started yapping, quickly joined by others. Evelyn noticed it too and moved close to me. I figured it was about 3:30, so I had plenty of time to get back to Gunsight. All I had to do was leave without a blast of lead from Evelyn's gun. He was standing close beside me with a trigger-happy look in his eyes. "Coyotes don't sound off till after sundown," I said, my voice low and hard. "You said it was only 2:15. You dirty sidewinder." I let go a right smash to his jaw. It connected, and Evelyn staggered back. I snatched up my shirt and jacket and ran to the window. Evelyn was right after me. I wrapped my coat and shirt around my head and shoulders and crashed through the glass. Gun or no gun, I was on my way to Gunsight. I landed hard on my belly in a shower of glass, the wind squirting out of me. As I got to my knees, Evelyn's big form hurtled through the window after me. Suddenly, a huge shadow obliterated my own. The shadow of an arm raised and descended quickly. There was a sickening crunch, and then the ground blew up in my face. Lights, then darkness. I was lying on grass by some bushes. I was stiff and sore, and there was a pile coaster rocking through my head. The glitter behind the palm fringe told me I'd been dumped in the downtown district. A row of honky-tonk bars appeared, their discordant music and laughter expanding and contracting like an accordion before settling down. There was a score I had to settle with Evelyn and Dreampuss, but that could wait. Right then I had just two things on my mind, a drink and a phone call to Gunsite. I pushed myself up, my jacket and shirt on the ground beside me. I picked them up and moved unsteadily through the bushes, aiming for a bar called the Desert Rat. In the bar mirror, my reflection appeared, hatless, shirtless, blood on my face.
Just getting up or just hitting the A?
The bartender asked. I eased onto a bar stool and reached for the telephone. I'll laugh about that over a double brandy. He wiped the grin off his face.
2 jiggers of panther sweat coming up, chum.
He started to pour as I picked up the phone and dialed.
Long distance, how can I help you?
The operator's voice said, Get me Gunsite 73, fast, beautiful. I tossed $2 silver on the counter. The bartender put the drink before me, and I tossed it down. A cute taxi driver turned from a slot machine, almost swallowing her gum as she saw me.
Holy smoke, what do you know?
Chuck, I said into the phone.
K.O. Where the blue devil? Chuck's voice was worn, worried. I've been calling City Hospital for the last 2 hours.
I walked into something, Chuck. A Mickey and a slugging were part of it. How's Jim?
Bad, K.O. Blood pressure's skyrocketing. It's 291.
My face tightened in alarm. I'll be down in half an hour. Have someone meet me at the airstrip. I hung up and turned, taking the taxi girl by the arm. Come on, taxi, get me to the airport fast.
Hold it, Tarzan. I'm just getting hot.
She protested, pulling the handle on the slot machine. A loud jackpot of spilling nickels sounded behind us, but I propelled her toward the door. I grabbed the back of her belt and swung her off the floor like a suitcase.
Let me go, you big ape. There's $7 back there.
You'll get your $7, I promised, pushing through the swinging doors with my squirming burden. The roar of a plane's motor merged into the sound of an oxygen balloon, filling and deflating. 35 minutes later, I was in my own surgery, at work on Jim Colgate. I trepanned out a piece of the skull that had been pressing on the dura. There was damage inside. Serious damage. I worked, and I sweated, and I thought of Sue waiting in the reception room, and what would become of her if Jim checked out on me. The balloon would fill and deflate, then nothing, and the sweat would rush out of me, till the balloon started up again. Sponge! Hemostat! Robert's gloved hands had everything at my fingertips, quick, sure, steady. Chuck listened to Jim's heartbeats through the stethoscope, his mouth tight. Boom. Boom. Then a skip. Finally, it stopped.
He's going,
Chuck said. Adrenaline, I yelled. Roberts had the hypodermic ready. I plunged the needle into the muscles of Jim's heart. Then we all waited for that balloon to fill. Waited and sweated. It didn't fill. Chuck removed his mask.
He'd have checked out anyway, K.O. With that tear, it's a wonder he lasted this long.
I ripped off my mask, my face seeming to have aged 10 years. Thanks, Chuck. But if I'd got here sooner, there might have been a chance. I glanced down at the body and shook my head.
I'll handle it with Sue, Nurse
Robert said softly. I shook my head and crossed to the door to the reception room. Sue was sitting on the divan, her 2 towheads asleep beside her. She looked up anxiously as I entered.
Jim, how?
Her face turned to horror at what she saw in mine.
He's dead.
I nodded miserably. I'm sorry. I could see all the faith she'd had in me washing slowly out of her face. Her eyes closed and she started to go down. I caught her and turned to start back into the surgery. Talbot stood by the door, cold-eyed and grim-faced.
You run out on him with a tow-headed gal,
he said, his voice like ice.
You get back 3 hours too late to save him, and now you're sorry.
I did all I could. Talbot shook his head disbelievingly.
I reckon Gunsight's no place for a man that doesn't keep his word, mister.
And that was the payoff. My 4 years of work in Gunsight, shot to pieces. But what hurt most was Sue, and the faith she'd lost in me. Those are the facts to date, Lieutenant, I finished, back in the sweatbox of the police station. Now how's about dousing that sun lamp? Lieutenant Redwine studied me for a moment, chewing his cigar.
Kill it, boys.
The room lights went on, and the arc light was killed. I blinked, wiping the perspiration off my face. The man beside Redwine, the thoughtful-eyed one, hadn't moved. A police secretary entered and handed Redwine some notes.
So the doctor's name was Banning?
Redwine asked.
And the girl's name was Mary Johnson?
That's right.
We've checked. There is no Dr. Banning.
How about Mary Johnson?
Nope.
That makes sense, I said. Do you think they'd have let me walk out alive if I had known their right names?
I'm wondering.
He rubbed his chin thoughtfully.
I've got a theory, Doc. You weren't too sure your patient would live, so you play it smart. You report it to the police, but you remember nothing that would help. When the body showed, we'd check the local hospitals and medics. Eventually, we'd take in gunsight. Then you'd be in a tough spot, unless you'd covered yourself ahead of time.
I don't have to listen to any more of your cockeyed deductions.
Well, the devil you don't. You'll listen and like it.
The other man touched Redwine's arm.
Take it easy, Matty. And
then he turned to me.
Look, Doc, we found a stiff this morning. His name was Dana, an international jewel thief. He'd been shot.
Then you think the man I operated on was mixed up in the shooting? The man nodded. All right, I said. Maybe he was. But that doesn't give him a license to accuse me of everything from mayhem to murder.
It's because you don't give us one single solitary clue to where we can find this man you operated on.
Redwine cut in. I've already told you. The windows were shuttered, and they'd made sure I'd remember nothing.
I'll tell you why you can't remember, Doc.
Redwine snarled.
There's a lot of money in that racket, and someone gave you a big chunk of it not to remember.
I jumped up angrily. Sure they did. They gave me $5 million. I flew to Gunsight and put it in my piggy bank.
Another crack like that and I'll throw you in the clink.
Go ahead. Throw the book at me if you think you can make it stick. The thoughtful man spoke again.
There's not much to hold him on, Matty.
Redwine studied me a moment longer, then nodded reluctantly.
You can go, but no further than Gunsight.
I dropped my cigarette butt on the floor, stepped on it, and gave him a sour look. Be seeing you, Lieutenant.
You're taking words out of my mouth, Doc.
Outside the station, the night air felt cool and restful after that sweatbox. The edge of my temper fell away, and I wondered where to start looking for the dame I'd called Dream Puss. A wide shadow moved in beside me. It was the thoughtful man from the interrogation room.
You treated Redwine kinda rough, Doc,
he said.
He's a square cop. He just worries too much.
I don't push around easily.
A guy with guts doesn't... How's about a drink?
I nodded, and we started walking. At the Silver Saddle, he ordered a tequila, and I had a double brandy. Thanks for the assist in the sweatshop, I said. He nodded, taking his drink.
Mason, Joe Mason. I'm an investigator for Grand Mutual. They insure jewelry, important stuff. I have a deputy's badge, courtesy of Redwine. I started out as a cop, and I guess I still am.
I used to like cops, and I don't remember stealing any jewelry lately.
But this Dana did,
Joe said.
And it hasn't showed up at the usual fences. We think the stones are being recut. A top-flight stonecutter named Blaine left New York 6 months ago. We traced him to Desert City, where he vanished.
He took another swallow of tequila.
Someone is mighty anxious that the man you operated on stayed alive. He could be that missing stonecutter, the big shot, or maybe both.
This is personal with me, Joe, I told him. I can't go back to Gunsight, but I can go after that dame and her pals and make them pay plenty. The cops wouldn't help me do that, so it has to be Operation Solo.
I was afraid of that. Where are you going to stay?
I'll find a place.
Town's kind of full. You can bunk with me if you like.
Friendship or business, Joe?
A little of each, maybe.
I've never slept with a cop, Joe. And I don't talk in my sleep.
You'd have your own room, Doc. Let's go grab some shut-eye.
Joe's place was a large, modern, ranch-type house. Floodlights went on as we approached. Nice shanty, I remarked.
Don't let the joint throw you, Doc,
he said.
I married a grass widow recently. I call her Baby. She's got a pile of lettuce, but I only spend my own dough, and I make it legit.
A Filipino houseboy named Taka opened the door. Joe led me down a hall to the rumpus room.
Hello, Joe.
A voice called out. Then I saw the reason for the big torch Joe was carrying. She was a gorgeous redhead with roving eyes that were filled with soft laughter. She wore silk lounging pajamas that clung provocatively at all points of interest.
Baby,
Joe said, taking her in his arms and kissing her hungrily. Her eyes were on me the whole time.
this is Dr. Luke Fargo. He's in trouble. You can call him Doc.
She held out her hand to me and was in no hurry to withdraw it.
I like Luke better. When you're in trouble, a drink often helps.
Thanks, Mrs. Mason. I just had one with Joe.
Call me baby, Luke.
Joe explained that he thought I should go back to Gunsight. Baby glanced at me as she lit a cigarette.
That could be good advice, Luke. I'll be glad to drive you back in the morning.
Doc will go home by bus and like it.
Joe said firmly.
Joe thinks I'm irresistible.
Baby said, her eyes teasing me.
What do you think?
I think Joe has something.
I like that. Tell me about your trouble, Luke.
It started with a blonde baby.
Joe said. Who wasn't run-of-the-mill, I added. She was high grade, seemed to be on the level. A friend had loaned her the big car she was driving. She wore a large star sapphire on her engagement finger, also from a friend.
Interested?
Baby asked. At first. Now all I want is to find her.
The rugged, silent type. Maybe I can help. There's a girl who might fit that description.
Don't give Doc any leads, baby.
Joe interrupted.
He'll go chasing that dame and get into more trouble.
Baby blew a smoke ring in Joe's direction.
I wouldn't want to hold anything back from a friend, Joe.
After a bit more talk, she gave me a teasing smile and left the room. Joe had gotten himself something, a hunk of heaven that could blow up any time and hurt like hell.
Still figuring on going after that blonde?
Joe asked me later. Uh-huh.
Better forget it, Doc. The goons in this racket play rough. Murder doesn't even rate a go slow sign in their book. Still going after that dame?
Still. And I'd like to borrow a gun. Joe thought a moment, then got up and handed me a gun from a cabinet.
There's 9 shells in the magazine and 1 in the breech.
Thanks, Joe. I pocketed it.
One more thing, Doc,
he said, his face serious.
I'll go a long way for a friend, but first of all, I'm a cop.
I slept late purposely the next morning. I wanted Joe out so I could get Baby to finish telling me where to find Dream Puss. I found her on the patio by the pool, sitting at the breakfast table in a yellow silk negligee. Joe around? I asked.
Afraid?
She teased. Joe's a friend of mine.
We're a very friendly family. Just coffee. I like it black.
She poured my coffee and lit a cigarette, her shoulder touching mine.
Her name is Drusilla Blaine,
she said, her voice a low murmur.
Her friends call her Dusty. She works for the Chamber of Commerce.
Blaine. That was the name of the missing stonecutter Joe had told me about. Baby moved closer, her eyes teasing, then moving down to my mouth.
Why go hunting for something when you can reach out and touch it?
I grinned, shook my head, and stood up. Thanks a lot.
You'll be back,
she said.
You're curious, so am I.
I'll be back when Joe's here. It was time for Fargo to do a fade out. At the Chamber of Commerce, a brunette in a Western costume and horn-rimmed glasses greeted me.
Howdy, partner. What can we do for you?
Dusty Blaine in.
She just left for lunch. Won't be back till tomorrow.
What's her home address?
Everyone wants that information, which we don't give out.
She rested her cheek in her hand, staring up at me innocently. While we're having lunch together, angel face. You could write it on the tablecloth. Her businesslike air melted.
Sorry, but are you free for dinner? I'm Josephine. I could lead you to Dusty after dinner.
I'm Doc Fargo. Where'll I meet you?
Out front at 7.
I had time to kill, so I took in a couple of shows. At 7, I met Josephine, who took off her fog lights at my request. Where to? I asked as we got into a taxi.
The Star Sapphire,
she said. Star Sapphire. It had a familiar ring, and Dusty wore one. I wondered if there was any connection. The club was a super glitter joint where the wheels were fixed and the customers came out nice and clean. Inside, Josephine and I were seated at a table bordering the gambling room.
Baby!
A voice said. I looked up to see Joe's wife smiling teasingly at me.
What a lovely surprise, Luke. Mind if I join you?
She sat down, much to Josephine's dismay.
There's Dusty playing now,
Baby said a moment later, and I turned my head quickly. There she was, wearing a strapless cocktail gown, a small camera in her hand. There was no mistaking that ash-blonde head and high-tension body. I excused myself and walked over to her. How's about taking my picture, nurse? She looked up quickly, fear in her eyes before it was gone.
Hello, Dr. Fargo. Did everything go all right back in Gunsight?
I said. So Mary Johnson turns out to be Dusty Blaine.
I'm sorry.
I think it's awful cute. Any place we can talk?
I have to photograph a customer winning at the roulette wheel.
She stammered.
It's a publicity stunt.
Just then, Johnny Frazee, the owner of the Star Sapphire, approached. He was a well-built man with dark curly hair and a professional smile that didn't reach his cold eyes.
This gentleman bothering you, Dusty?
No, Johnny. Dr. Fargo, this is Johnny Frazee.
Dreampuss has just talked me into playing shill to your publicity stunt, Mr. Frazee, I said, ignoring his outstretched hand. And I always keep what I win. His eyes hardened, but the smile stayed.
I see you've been around, Doc. Alternate between numbers 13 and 29. You start on 13.
I put 10 chips on number 13, as ordered. The ball landed.
Number 13.
The croupier called? 350 smackers. A nice start. I put 10 reds on number 29. The ball landed.
Number 29.
That made it $700. I stuck to orders, alternating between 13 and 29. I was over $2,000 to the good when I saw Frazee heading my way.
Congratulations, Dr. Fargo,
he said, his smile flashing.
This time we shake hands.
For $2,000, I can take it. Stick around, I'm just getting started.
That's what you think.
A blinding light flashed as Dusty took our picture.
Quitting while you're ahead, eh, Dr. Fargo? Smart for you. Tough for the house. Dr. Fargo's cashing in, George.
The croupier pushed 2 stacks of purple chips to me. $2,100. I caught a warning in Dreampuss's eyes. Frazee steered me to the cashier's window.
Pay him an even $2,000, Norton.
Frazee said, $2,000. Just the amount Dusty had promised for the operation. Things were beginning to add up. Could this be some kind of a payoff, I asked. His smile widened.
Carl will see you to the Gunsight bus, Doctor.
Carl, a heavy-set young man with close-cropped blonde hair, appeared at his side. He packed a rod and he had a license. It looked like the old Statue of Liberty play, Dreampuss, to Frazee to Carl, with Fargo playing ball. We walked out onto a side street, out of the moonlight and into deep shadows. Now I was getting the bum's rush out of town. Funny about that, I didn't want to go. I suddenly kicked Carl's ankles together, and as he stumbled, I smashed my left fist to his head. I dumped his body over a low hedge into a cactus bed. Just then, a police siren sounded close by, and a car slewed to the curb. It was Joe.
You all right, Fargo?
He asked him. Sure, why?
Some dame phoned headquarters, said you were headed for the bus depot and that you were in trouble.
Nice dame. Who was she?
She didn't give her name. Any ideas?
I won $2,000 at the Star Sapphire. Some dame must have figured they wouldn't let me keep it.
Find your blonde.
Not yet, and I don't take that bus until I do.
I smell trouble. Go to my place, Doc. We'll talk things over later. Baby likes gin rummy. Watch out she doesn't take you.
He drove off. I figured Baby had done the telephoning, but I still wanted that talk with Dreampuss. I rented a car and parked on Curson Street across from the club to wait. About an hour later, Dusty and Frazee exited. I followed them. Frazee dropped her off at a small duplex and drove away, lights on, shades down. Just right for a little fireside chat. I rang the bell. The door opened cautiously, and I pushed my shoulder in. We had a date, remember? She let me in. The apartment was a nice, cozy nest. Frazee had done all right for himself. I used to think I knew dames, I told her, leaning against the mantel. But you don't add up straight. Built like an angel, but inside, unhung.
I called the police to get you clear of Carl.
Which doesn't square you for slipping me that Mickey, or for the fact that Jim Colgate died on the operating table because I got back 3 hours too late. You did great. She flinched.
Oh no, but they promised.
Promised you, eh? Okay, baby, there's things I want to know, and we start with they. She gave me a helpless look, so I grabbed her by the elbows. Go on, talk.
What else do you want?
$18,000. Sue Colgate had faith in me. She hasn't anymore. Gunsight's a small town, and it's got around that K.O. Fargo didn't keep his word. I have got $2,000 so far. I want 16 more. It goes to Sue, her 2 kids, and the one that's on the way.
You're either the greatest guy in the world or...
Call your boyfriend! I kissed her then hard. When I let her go, I said, call the buzzard and tell him what I want. She crossed to the phone and dialed.
Johnny, I've got company. Dr. Fargo, he wants $18,000. He says he's staying here until he gets it.
Frazee arrived in 20 minutes. Dusty explained the situation. Frazee told me a story about Dusty's father, Blaine, the gem cutter. How he was being held by jewel thieves and forced to work for them. He gave me the 18 grand and saw me to the door.
I'm in a spot, Fargo,
he said.
I'm crazy about Dusty. I'm going to marry her. But there's something I can't tell her. I can't rescue her dad. He's the Mr. Big behind the racket.
It made a whale of a lot of sense. Now I was the one in a spot. If I let Mr. Big go, I couldn't clear myself in Gunsight. If I kept after him, Dream Puss would be hurt.
So why not go back to Gunsight and forget about it?
Frazee suggested. I'll think about it. I went back to Dusty. I reckon this is about where Fargo came in. So long, and good luck. I started for the door, but she called my name.
Luke, I've got to know what you're going to do.
I studied her, then grinned faintly. Keep my big trap shut, Dusty. It was the first time I'd called her Dusty. I saw the fright clouds wash out of her eyes. Her mouth was warm, yielding, the way I figured it would be when she wasn't scared anymore. Her arms went around my neck. Her lips found mine, and she held me. It was a reward, and it meant something. She closed the door. I was feeling great. The warmth of her lips still with me, her perfume clinging to my jacket. Then at the bottom of the stairs, Carl was waiting, his gun jammed into the small of my back.
Clasp your hands behind your neck and keep walking, Doc.
Frazee was leaning against his big Cadillac.
I said for you not to stay too long, Doc.
You got nice teamwork from Dream Puss?
Dusty's my dame. She plays it my way.
He frisked me, took back the 18 grand, and found the gun Joe had given me. They took me out to a Joshua tree forest. Frazee leaned against the car while Carl went to work on me. His knuckles were big and rock hard, and they seemed to twist as he hit. Hot knives lanced up the sides of my face. I felt his weight shift. Then something hard and metallic crashed against my skull, and the world came apart at the seams. When I came to, I was still alive. Frazee must have stopped Carl, but why? My rental car was parked nearby, and in the front seat was the body of the man I'd operated on, the one with the bandaged head and black face. He was dead. The pieces fell together fast. Frazee had set the stage for the cops. A police siren wailed in the distance. I ducked and ran as shots crashed out. My lungs were bursting and my knees were going rubber, but I had to stay away from those cops long enough to choke a confession out of a double-crossing dame. A flashlight pinned me against a tree.
I warned you they played rough around here, Doc.
It was Joe.
Headquarters got a tip we'd find you out here dumping a body.
Sure, I said bitterly. I rent a car, sign K.O. Fargo to the slip, I pick up the body, I call the cops and say, guess who did it? Then I give myself a fancy beating, and I pass out.
I figured it was a frame, but red wine's in a spot, Doc. He needs a fall guy badly.
He helped me to his car.
Relax, Doc. You're under arrest, but we aren't going to headquarters. I'm stashing you out at my place. This isn't Operation Solo anymore, Doc. You've got to work with me now.
I wanted to tell him I liked the idea fine, but the words wouldn't come. At his house, soft hands touched my face. I saw a blur, then Baby's face took shape. She was kneeling beside me on the settee.
Feeling better, Luke? They're hunting you, Luke. Hunting everywhere except here.
She leaned closer.
I could tell Joe you made a pass at me. Joe's jealous. He'd turn you over to red wine.
What kind of a dame are you, anyway?
Why not find out?
She leaned over me, her hands braced on either side of my head. She kissed me softly, then harder. I didn't give an inch.
Something wrong with me, Luke?
Nothing that Joe couldn't fix. Anger flashed in her eyes.
You shouldn't have said that, darling. Get some sleep. When Joe comes back, he'll want to talk to you.
I had made another enemy. I got up and crossed to the phone, gently lifting the receiver. I heard a click, then the sound of dialing.
Operator?
A voice said.
Got me, police headquarters.
Came Baby's voice.
If you want Dr. Luke Fargo, you'll find him at 168 Montezuma Drive.
It was a nice night for double-crossers. I tiptoed to the French doors and disappeared into the night. I needed help badly, and there was just one place I might find it. I rang Dusty's doorbell. Police sirens wailed in the distance. She opened the door on a night chain. "I've got to talk to you," I said. She let me in. In the moonlight of her living room, she saw my beaten face.
What happened to you?
As if you didn't know. You keep me here, while Frazee rounded up his little playmates. They gave me a fancy beating and took back their 20 grand. And Johnny supervised that beating, left my patient's body in my car, and called the cops.
Don't look at me like that, Luke. I had nothing to do with it.
I swallowed that once, but I don't do it twice. You're taking me to Frazee. You fix it so I see him in his office with the door locked. Then we go to the police, and you tell them how you got me into this deal.
Luke, I can't. They'd kill my father.
Kill him? Don't give me that guff. You and Frazee ought to get your story straight. He told me your dad ran the racket.
Oh, no. How could Johnny say such a thing? Luke, he's lying. You've got to believe me.
Tears and hysterics wouldn't work. She finally agreed to a bargain. If I helped her get her dad away, she'd take me to Johnny and tell the police everything.
It's that or nothing, Luke.
It's a deal. Where do we find your old man?
At a ranch about 5 miles out of town.
At the Smoke Tree Ranch, Dusty faked a feint to distract Evelyn. I got the drop on him. Inside, Dusty searched for her father, but he wasn't there.
They've done something to him. Make him talk, Luke.
I strapped Evelyn to the operating table in the kitchen. Where'd they take Mr. Blaine?
I wouldn't know.
I flashed a scalpel in front of his face, then ripped a piece of ice sharply across his stomach. He screamed, thinking he'd been cut. You're wide open, laughing boy. Where's Mr. Blaine? Better start talking before you run out of blood.
Star Sapphire, Frazee's office, picture behind desk, press lower right corner. It opens into Blaine's workshop. He's locked in. Now do something, Doc.
Sorry, but I can't take time to finish now. Just keep still, relax. You may live. In the hallway, Dusty looked sick.
Luke, we can't leave him like that.
Oh, that! I just scratched his stomach with a piece of ice. The rest is all in his mind. Outside, I turned to her. I should have known right along you were on the level, Dusty. I treated you like a heel. I just want you to know I'm sorry. Her eyes softened.
In trusting Frazee, I wasn't exactly brilliant either, Luke.
My arms tightened about her, and I kissed her. I wanted a world of memories to take with me in case we walked into something I couldn't handle. At the Club Sapphire, Dusty got us into Frazee's office. I climbed in through the window. We were about to open the secret panel when Carl, the goon from before, tried the door. Dusty let him in, and I got the drop on him. As Dusty opened the panel, Carl dove at me. We fought, and I told her to get her dad out fast. As she and Blaine escaped through the window, I knocked Carl out just as Frazee entered the room. "Lost something, Mr. Frazee?" I said, holding his own gun on him. "Now we go to the cashier and get back Sue's 20 grand. Take my arm, we're old pals." We walked through the casino, Frazee's phony smile plastered on his face. He got the money, and we went out the back to meet Dusty and her father. "Frazee wants to go for a ride," I said. "So we're taking his car. We're going to play visiting fireman." At Joe Mason's house, I rang the bell. Joe opened the door, chewing his cigar. "Sorry to barge in on you, Joe, but I brought you a present. Johnny Frazee. He's the rat who planted the body in my car. I could have taken him to Redwine, but you gave me a square deal, Joe, so I brought you the missing pieces."
Come right in,
he said, taking my gun and prodding Frazee into the rumpus room. Mr. Blaine told his story, how Frazee had held him prisoner and forced him to recut the stolen Thorpe diamonds. He handed the necklace to Joe.
Holy mackerel. The 2 millions in hot ice I've been chasing for the last year. Brother, what a break.
"Well, Joe," I said, rising, "as long as you have found your Mr. Big, you don't need us."
Nobody's going anyplace, Luke.
It was Baby. She stood in the doorway holding a gun on us, her eyes dancing.
"Baby,"
Joe said in amazement. "Don't you get it, Joe?" I said grimly. "Your Mr. Big wears buttons and bows, which makes us a couple of prize saps."
There are 2 Mr. Bigs, Luke.
She said.
A sort of partnership. I might have got you in if you come up to expectations.
So that was why you married me, baby,
Joe said, disillusioned.
So you'd know every move I made against your racket.
He walked slowly toward her, his gun held loosely at his side.
Drop that gun!
Don't come any closer, Joe.
Her gun fired. A red stain appeared on Joe's shirt, but he kept walking. She fired again and again. He raised his own gun. A shot crashed out. A surprised look spread over Baby's face, and her gun clattered to the floor. Joe stood with his smoking gun, his face convulsed with pain and grief. He collapsed beside her. Frazee made a dive for Joe's gun, but I launched myself at him, sending him sprawling. I crossed back to where Dusty knelt beside Joe, his eyes fluttered open.
Skip it, Doc,
he whispered.
It's better this way.
His hand groped for Baby, stroking her hair.
Just leave me go quietly with Baby.
I got up and crossed to the phone. Get me police headquarters. Lieutenant Redwine wasn't such a bad guy once he had all the facts shoved under his nose. He even hinted if he needed an operation, he'd look in on a guy named Fargo. The next day, Dusty and I were driving out of Desert City, leaving it all behind. She was looking at travel folders Josephine had given her for our honeymoon.
What do you like?
She asked.
Mountains, desert, seashore?
Mountains.
Here's one that sounds intriguing. Lovely Tamarack Lodge, up in Canada.
Canada? Too far. Couldn't take the time. I've got to be on hand when Sue's baby arrives. She sighed, exasperated.
All right, darling. Someday when you aren't so sleepy, you can pick out the spot for our honeymoon.
I suddenly came wide awake. Lady, you really walked into that one. Hang on to your bustle. I yanked the wheel hard to the right. The car's tires screamed as we made a fast turn and entered the drive to a very nice, modern motel. A sign read, Motel Siesta. Quiet, restful. Taped to the rear of the car, unknown to me until that moment, was another sign, complete with tin cans and old shoes. Just hitched.